What's up, Church Home Youth? It's April. Welcome to weekly service. It's Jamie and I today. I love it when we're
so
together.
Excited.
Today's going to be fun. We are going to do a little get to know me. We've been in this series, Jesus Is, and we want to talk about who Jesus has been to us. How did we even end up here?
Yes.
So we want to talk about that. And then really just our hope in that is that you would be encouraged to know that there's elements of our story which we hope that you connect with, that you can understand that, man, if God can do these things in our lives, not that our lives are perfect, but God has done some really cool things in our lives, that he can do it in yours as well.
Yeah.
So let's start with you, Jamie. Tell us, if you were to say, actually, how did you even start going to Church Home City Church?
Such a good question. Okay. Well, it has been 10 years now, which I feel like.
Did you have a 10-year reunion or like party or like, did you
No,
get
I feel I should have though. Oh, actually, you know what? No, it's been 9 years.
Oh, so you can still do it.
9.5 years. This summer, this August will be 10 years. It's 10 and a half years since I started like kind of following Jesus. And when I say kind of, I mean like I said yes, but it took me like a year to actually like, actually follow him.
I got you.
Boy, you are slow at following.
But yeah, it was right out of high school for me. I like went to a Young Life camp, shout out Young Life, and learned about Jesus for the first time ever and was like, wait, actually, like, I think I'm interested in this. I think I want to follow him.
Sounds interesting.
And right out of high school, I was like, okay, I need a church. And my leader was like, you should go check out. It was City Church at the time. I'm hoping the 10-year thing doesn't like date me too much. And you're all like, oh, they're too old to listen to.
She was 8 when she started coming.
Yeah, 8 years old.
I am not old. You are old.
Which also means my 10-year reunion is this summer from high school, which is wild, but I'm really excited.
I went to my 10-year reunion, I think, last year, and it wasn't special.
Oh.
Yeah. But it was cool to see people. I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
But for me, I started coming to Church Home in 2012. So 12 years ago, out of high school.
Wow, you're pretty old.
You are old.
You know, hey, it's the kids. They're starting to date me.
Yeah.
But I started coming after I graduated high school. I was going to college in Seattle, and I knew I needed to find a church. And I actually had some friends that were coming to City Church, Church Home. But I also saw online. I was one of those people that looked up church online.
Wow.
I saw there was a service that met, and I was like, let's just try it out. And I found really amazing community. And one of the things which even in us talking about it in both of our stories is that there's an element of like community, someone either inviting or someone that was there.
Totally.
You never know who your invite to church, someone, when you invite someone to church or how that might impact them.
Totally.
I think who's someone in your life that you would say, man, this person along my journey of following Jesus has they've had an impact on me.
I love that. Honestly, if I think about it, definitely the leaders in my life, I feel like made such an impact because they were just consistent and constantly just like, hey, it's no pressure, but if you want to come, you should. Even the friend that invited me to Young Life camp, she had to invite me quite a few times because I was like, a church camp, that's not my vibe. And she had to twist it to not twist it, that sounds bad, but kind of
Clever twist.
Make it sound exciting for me. And so I don't know. And it honestly did. It made such a big difference in my life. And I feel like that would be such an encouragement too, is if you've invited friends to church or to something you're doing and they've said no over and over and over again, it doesn't mean that it's the end. There's a chance that they will go. I mean, even my parents, so I didn't grow up in the church at all. And my parents were not church people. And they told me that when I started going to church and I'd invite them and they're like, we are not church people. We're not going to that.
Nope, not today.
It took a year and a half. I prayed and I invited them all the time. And they eventually said yes and started coming to church. And it's impacted our family a ton too. But
and I've seen that firsthand. So amazing. My family, we grew up in church, and I always thought in my mind, I always had this thought man, going to church as a kid, middle schooler, I'd always be one day I feel like I'm going to take this God thing seriously.
Yeah,
I don't know when that one day will be, but I always had that sense that one day it wouldn't just be me showing up to church because my parents made me go. And that definitely came in high school. And similar to you, And like we were talking about, it was someone that kept inviting me over and over. And I didn't want to go because I was like, man, all these people starting to go to this church. I was 16 and I wanted to be cool. I just wanted to be like, I wanted my own thing. But this friend just kept inviting me and I finally showed up and I was like, man, this Jesus thing, like the service is really cool. Like the people look cool. They dress cool. Like wore cool shoes. The pastor looked cool.
Oh, this is so cool.
And that was like the door that began my journey of really, really finding Jesus, and not just finding Jesus, but like finding my identity in him.
Totally.
And
it looked different than you expected, right?
Oh,
like,
so different.
Especially growing up in church, because I like grew up going to like Catholic mass on, Easter and Christmas because my grandpa was Catholic, which is it's great. But I just thought that this is church, and it's cool because there's just so many different avenues for sure. And
even in that, it was like my senior, I started coming, and then it took probably like 6 months to where I would have what I would call like an encounter with God, where I was at a youth conference, a youth camp, very much similar to what we do often. And actually, before I get to that, I also want to say that my friend that was inviting me to church, she hosted something in her home once a month, very similar to what we do with weekly service.
That's cool.
And so even though you might think that having people in your home might be weird, you might be a little bit afraid of like, what are my friends going to think? Like, my house isn't the biggest house. Like, I have a small house. Like, I was afraid of the way my house looked growing up.
Totally, me too.
Like, I didn't really want to invite people over, but I'm telling you, that stuff does not matter. God can use anything.
So true.
But even, I'll say this real quick, was coming every week and was at this youth conference, and I want to share this verse of what I believe happened to me. And our hope in us even sharing how we've encountered Jesus is that you would begin to ask yourself questions and you would begin to seek out God and find Jesus in a way where man, I've had an encounter with Jesus, and you can always look back on that moment and know that that was the moment where Jesus changed my life. And I was at this conference and I'm up front and like my leaders are praying for me. They know who I am. And I felt like while I was getting prayed for, felt like I had like a spiritual heart transplant. I know it sounds so weird, but I felt like God took away my heart that had all these desires to do a lot of things which are not godly. And all of a sudden, I left this conference feeling like, man, I really want to start inviting my friends to church. I really want to start reading my Bible. My heart completely changed. And then I found this verse in Ezekiel 36:26, where Ezekiel, he's a prophet, and God gives Ezekiel a word to tell the people of Israel. And in this word, he says this. He says, tell them, I will give you a new heart. A new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I can absolutely say that I experienced that. So
that's a game changer.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And for that all to happen when you were, how old were you? Like,
I was 16.
Yeah. But like when you're in middle school and high school, a lot of the time it's so common to think, I'll take it seriously when I'm older. But it's like, no, God is so much bigger than that. And you're your age for a reason. And he wants you to encounter him at your age.
Right.
You look at the disciples, they're young.
So young.
So many of them are young. They're literally middle school age, which is so crazy to think about. And Jesus was like, no, you guys are with me. So I think that's really significant.
Yeah, I think that scripture for me is so, like, it just takes me back to that moment. Do you have any like scripture or anything that makes you think of, things God has done in your life?
So many things. I will say when I first started following Jesus, it was so brand new to me. So because I didn't grow up in church or anything, so I didn't really know a lot about it. And I remember I just wanted to read my Bible all the time. And so I read Psalm 119 all the time, like the whole thing. I think it's the longest Psalm in the Bible. It's really long, but it pretty much is like David going through over and over again, God, train me in your ways, show me the way to live life. And I think for me, that was I needed that because I had lived my life for 18 years a certain way. And it was like I had a new life. But I will say, I think the most impactful verse for me in my life of following Jesus is Philippians 1:12. And this is Paul. He's talking and he says this. He says, I want you to know, dear ones, could you imagine? Okay. Hey, dear ones, what has happened to me has not hindered. So this is like Paul's in prison, all these things. What has happened to me has not hindered, but helped my ministry of preaching the gospel, causing it to expand and spread to many people. And I think this verse has stood out to me so much in my life because, like I said, I lived like 18 years not following Jesus. And you can imagine, as a high school student, like I did a lot of things like you just said that were not godly.
It wasn't very good.
For sure. And when I started following Jesus, I'm like, this is going to hinder me. Like I just felt that way. And maybe you've thought that. You're like, no, I've done so many things that for sure are going to hinder like how I can actually reach people or how I can tell people about Jesus. And I thought that for sure, because when I started following Jesus, we had an internship program at our church. So I started doing that and got super involved. And then I got hired to be on staff. And in the back of my mind for so long, it was like, but I still did a lot of not great things. And that's going to actually hold me back. But reading this about Paul, and he's like, actually, those things that I've done or these things even that have happened to me are not going to hinder me. They're actually going to help me reach more people. They're going to actually help me tell more people about Jesus because I've experienced his grace. And I think that's for me, I've experienced the grace of Jesus, the forgiveness of Jesus. That's actually going to help me reach more people. That's actually going to help me when it comes to inviting people to church or asking people in my life, hey, you saw what my life was like before and now you see it now and the way I've changed because of his grace. And I think that's been really big for me. And yeah, maybe you're like, yeah, so much that I've done or so much that's happened to me makes it so I can't really experience Jesus in a deep personal way, or I can't reach other people. And that's not true. That is not true at all. That is a lie. The truth is every part of your story matters and you can reach so much more people. You're more relatable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of, you talked a little bit about how you ended up here and how, the progression of coming on the staff. I even think about, for me, there's probably a lot of people who feel like, I want to meet Jesus and maybe feeling a little bit confused or what am I supposed to do with my life? And one of the most powerful things that happened to me when I was 16 was I felt like I was called to ministry. I know it sounds so, churchy, but I felt that feeling was the same thing that happened in my heart. It was like my heart was moved to wanting to tell people about God. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was like, I have to do this for my life. Otherwise, I know I will not be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And sitting here 12, almost 13 years later, God plants seeds in us when we're in middle school and we're in high school.
Totally.
Which do tell us the direction that he wants to take us in life. And yeah, directions change, things change. But God wants to help you understand and help you know he does have a direction for your life. He does have a plan for your life. And that plan for your life can start now. You don't have to wait until you're our age. Wait till you're your parents' age to start feeling like God is using you, or God is doing something in your life. It can actually start right now.
That's so real. No, I love that. Because yeah, I think a lot of the time, especially middle school, high school, it's life starts post high school, because that's when I have control. I'm not in my parents' house anymore, which I still lived at my parents' house after high school for a while. But
Same.
So if you do, it's okay. But yeah, it's thinking, well, it's all going to start then. But what's crazy too is once you get out of high school, it's well, no. Maybe my life will start after college. And then you get out of college and you're like, well, I don't.
When you're married.
When I'm married, when I have kids, and you're always thinking that way. But yeah, God has something. He's put dreams and desires in your heart now at 12 years old, at 15 years old, at 18 years old. And I would just encourage, even with what you're saying, ask God, hey, what does this look like just now? What does it look like for me? I'm passionate about art. How can I do that now? Is it starting an art club at your school where there's just a space for people who love art to draw together, and maybe Jesus gets brought up in that way? I don't know. But yeah, those dreams and desires, it's so crazy the way God molds them, and then he shows them more and more the older you get. I'm 27 and I still am I feel like I have imposter syndrome being like a 27-year-old. I'm like, what am I doing? When am I an adult? But
Yeah, totally.
It's just life, and God's in all of it.
Yeah. Before we close, I even just want to shout out some of the students that are hosting weekly service.
Yeah.
Dante. I think about, Grace and Ellen and Alice, Michaela. They're going to be starting doing things up there.
Ava.
Yeah, there's so many students. Sorry if we didn't shout you out. But we're just so grateful for students who have felt like, man, I'm called to start hosting in my home. I'm called to start doing this with my friends at my school. And just because we didn't say your name, or you're maybe wondering like, man, I don't know if that can be me. That can be you.
100%.
And that is you. And that's what we believe, that God has not just called us and called them, those individuals, but God has called you to reach your unique community and your unique friends. And so that's my final thoughts, is just that how much we love you and we believe in you.
Yeah.
We do know that God does have a plan for your life. Even though you might question it, you might not see it, you might not feel it, He does have a plan.
So true.
Any last thoughts?
No, honestly, I feel like you're not too young. I guess that's like the main thing. I wish I knew that more when I was younger, but not too young. God has so many good things for you, and we're here and we love you and are praying for you all the time. But
yes, please hit us up. We love you so much. Thanks for tuning in today. See you next week. Peace.